Mr. President,
The senator from Florida is recognized.
I yield myself 11 minutes from the bill time.
Without objection.
I got a chance to go home, had some close family friends had a loss in their family over the last few days, wanted to go back and see them. I get this email, 3 a.m., I didn't see it till 5 a.m., that my 8 a.m. flight is canceled. And so I had trouble getting here this morning. I was finally able to get here in time for the vote we took just a few hours ago, but I didn't get here for the first two ones. So I had a chance that morning to do two things. The first, I had a chance to take my son to football practice. It's that glorious time of year when high school football's going. And then the other thing I had a chance to do is I had a chance to go to this Cuban bakery that's close to my house. I don't get to go often, but when I do go, especially on weekends, I look for one of these little corners and just sit there. And I really like to go because I get to hear people talking. People that live on planet Earth, not people that are here in politics and in the bubble that is Washington. And you get to hear people talk, and you know, and what I heard first, one of the first things I heard today is about two ladies that were in line, and they were talking about how difficult it had become. You know, it's back to school shopping time, and even with the tax-free holiday week that we have in Florida, I could hear them talking about how much more expensive it was going to be this year to buy, how the list was longer, and everything cost more, like pencils, all the stuff. I couldn't hear everything. I didn't want to entirely eavesdrop, but I could hear what they were talking about. A few minutes later, these two guys come in. He's like, hey, are you taking the boat out today? No, I'm not taking the boat out. I'm not taking my kids out. The gas is too expensive. It's crazy to fill it up. It's twice what it used to be for the boat, X, Y, and Z. A few minutes later, someone else came by, and he was talking about you know, the reports on the news. We have a massive migration crisis, which impacts the whole country, not just the land border, but we had this weekend, I think 6 or 8 Border Patrol engagements in the Florida Keys, people getting on rafts and leaving and coming there, maybe 2 more today. And it struck me as I'm sitting there, and I've been reminded of this every time I go home, but it really struck me before I came here today that we like to talk a lot about how divided politics is in America, and it is. It's very polarized. But I think we make a huge mistake when we think it's as simple as what normal political divisions are in this country, which is between Republicans and Democrats or between the left and the right. The polarization in American politics, the division, the sharpest division in American politics today is between the priorities of millions and millions of people who live paycheck to paycheck, the working class heroes of our country that we've always bragged about, always looked up to, we all recognize makes us different than the rest of the world, between the things that matter to them and what the people that run this place, and I don't just mean the Senate, but the federal government and politics in general, are focused on. There is a universe of difference between the stuff we spend time voting on and talking about and arguing about in politics and in this place and what people are worried about on a daily basis. I know a lot of you think that everyone's glued to their TV and Twitter watching everything we're doing here tonight. They're not. They might know something's going on tonight, maybe, but most people are worried about their everyday life. What they expect is that we would be here, I don't know, working on the things that matter to them. I'm telling you that what the people, by the millions, registered in both political parties, people that voted for Biden, people that voted for Trump, I'm telling you what they're worried about is the fact that the streets in many cities in this country have been turned over to criminals. We've got prosecutors funded by Soros who refuse to put people in jail. They won't do it. Entire categories of crime, they won't even prosecute them. Even in Florida, a state where we do prosecute people, you go to a CVS or a Walgreens, everything's locked up behind that little plastic case because people just walk in and steal the stuff. It's a spirit of widespread, rampant criminality, and it's worse in other parts of the country. One of the reasons why people are leaving these other places, these are once beautiful, glorious cities. They're unlivable. That's what people are worried about. They're worried about becoming a victim of a crime because some animals are running loose, terrorizing people, and prosecutors won't do anything about it. Not to mention that we spent 2 years demonizing police officers around here as well. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about the border. They really are worried about the border. I get it. Maybe now it's going to change because they're busing them to New York and here to Washington. But I get it. It's very easy in the Upper West Side of New York or in the West Hollywood area to not worry that much about immigration. We shouldn't have a border. Let's be nice. But the people whose hospitals are being overrun, whose schools are being overcrowded, whose communities are being strained, are the communities that are taking this influx, 7,000, 8,000 people a day. We're the only country on this planet that lets people just show up and say, hey, I'm here, I'm staying. The only one. Mexico doesn't allow you to. You can't do that to Mexico. You can't do that to Canada. You can't do that in Europe, but you can do it here. People know it. That's what they're worried about. A huge problem. And they're worried about the price of everything. People focus on gas. It's funny, the president said he couldn't control gas prices until they started going down a little. One of the reasons why it's going down, people are driving less. They're not going on vacation. They're not taking the boat out because it's expensive. Frankly, that's what they wanted. Do not be fooled. That's what they wanted. They were not unhappy about high gas prices. They were just upset that it happened a few months before an election. But the Democrats and the left, they were not unhappy about high gas prices because they don't want you to drive. They want everybody to take a bus or buy one of these $90,000 Chinese electric cars. That's what they want everybody to do. We'll talk about that in a minute. They were not happy, but it's not just that. I mean, I don't know how many people here do their own groceries, but in my house we do. And I'm just telling you, it's twice what it used to be. I get it. My kids are growing and they eat twice as much too, but it's twice what it used to be on everything. On everything. And that's just food. That's the other problem with inflation. People talk about inflation as the inflation that matters the most is the necessities, not the flat screen TVs, not the new car, the necessities. That's what's going up in price. Housing, clothes, back to school supplies, food. All of that is through the roof. Caused, by the way, partially by a bill, one of the first things they did in March. $1.9 trillion of federal money, of your money, people's money, poured right into the economy. We had a supply shortage, and we created more demand with all that money. Anyway, that's what people are worried about. Inflation, the crime, the border, the real life stuff. What have we spent our time focused on and fighting around here? I can tell you, first, a fake, and I mean a completely fake electoral rights crisis, election rights crisis. Totally fake. Spent a lot of time on that. Spent a lot of time arguing about whether we were going to vote on a bill to make it easier to sue police officers. Spent a lot of time around here talking about, in government, federal government in general, talking about things like pregnant people, something that does not exist. In the 5,500 years of human history, every single pregnant person that's ever existed happened to be a woman. But we talk about pregnant people. We have a military that likes to put out tweets about the proper use of pronouns. We worry a lot about those things. We focus a lot on those things. You know what China's focused on? Blowing up our aircraft carriers. Maybe we should worry more about that. We spend a lot of time now. This basically is Build Back, whatever the way they Build Back Better, Junior. Just a little bit, a lot of money, but just less money. They might as well have voted for the one. I don't know why the senators that kind of gave them their vote on this, why didn't they just agree to the other one? This is just a smaller version of that. That's what this is. But anyway, that's what we're focused on. So you can see, we're up here, we're going to vote late at night and into the morning, which is fine with me. I don't know if it's fine with everybody, but it's fine with me. But at least if we're going to do that, let's be about the things that the people care about, that matter to real people in the real world. It's not. Instead, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. What we're going to spend time on is a $30 billion slush fund they call green loans. That's what it is, guys. It's a slush fund. It is for all these people that have companies that are in the green energy space. That's their buddies. They're not going to be able to tap into this loan program. They've done this once before, but not a $30 billion slush fund. Okay? We're going to spend $60 billion solving environmental racism. I don't even know what that is. I don't know anybody knows what that is. It's like when they say Latinx. I thought that was a band. I've never heard that word before in my life, and I don't know what environmental racism is. $9 billion on tax credits to help people that already have electric cars buy another electric car. Let me tell you guys something. You may not realize this. I get it. Maybe because the bubble around here is so thick. So let me tell you the truth. A lot of people that vote for you guys as well are not buying an electric car this year, next year, the year after that, for a lot of reasons. Number one, charging stations. The common sense of everyday people. They're not doing it any time in the near future. Maybe this will help them 30 years from now, or their grandkids 30 years from now, but not today. They're not buying an electric car because even with your little rebate, it's still too much for them. They're lucky they can get a new one with gas in it. They got to buy a used car. That's another problem we have. Okay, we're going to help, though, with this tax, $9 billion to help people buy tax credits, by the way, with a Chinese battery in it. Oh, yeah. You can't make those batteries without China. So, great for China. I imagine they'll spend a bunch more money on solar panels that are also made in China. And to kick it all off, thank God, this is a good one, because I know a lot of people are worried about this, $1.5 billion to plant more trees. Whatever. And then on top of all that, they're going to hire an army of IRS agents. This is the one that I love. They're going to go after the people that aren't paying enough in their taxes. Let me explain to you something. I don't like it. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing, but I'm going to explain something to people that don't understand this. These billionaires, who, by the way, fund all their campaigns, just got a huge break in this bill, very ironic. These billionaires, these corporations, these people have armies of lawyers and law firms and accountants. And I'm telling you, they will fight these agents. So who do you think these agents are going to go after? Because fighting these corporations ain't easy, and you will eventually run out of billionaires to go after. They're going to go after small businesses. They're going to go after working people, maybe people that make $250,000 a year. We think that's a lot of money. In some places it is in this country. In some places it's a good living. But you're not rich at $250,000 in some parts of this country. You're doing all right, no doubt about it. But you're not a billionaire. They're going to go after them. They're going to go after the people that cannot afford to hire an army of lawyers and accountants to fight off the IRS agents. Thousands of IRS agents. Well, not police officers to go after criminals, IRS agents to go after American taxpayers. That's who they're going to go after. I promise you, and I regret to say it, that a lot of hard-working people are going to be getting letters in the mail saying, hey, we want to talk to you about your taxes from 5 years ago, from 3 years ago, because we think you might have messed up. And you don't have an army of lawyer or lobbyists. You're going to pay them whatever they say, even if you have to take out a credit line on your house because you don't want trouble with the IRS. That's what this bill does. That's what this bill is. Everyone else has covered it, and they cynically call it the Inflation Reduction Act. And let me tell you why they call it that. And this is actually very sad and outrageous. They call it that because, I'm telling you, and I hate to say it, but a lot of the people behind this kind of stuff, they see hardworking, everyday Americans as a bunch of uneducated simpletons who will just fall for this. And the media will help them. They know the media will help them. Not all the media, but a lot of the reporters will help them. Even though the reporters themselves keep calling this a climate bill because they're so giddy about that part of it. But they think the people are going to just fall for it. People are not going to fall for it. I don't care how smart you think you are and how uneducated you think they are. They've got something most people involved in our government have lost or maybe never had. It's called common sense. And they have the common sense of knowing that making it easier for people to buy with a credit an electric car in 3 years is not going to do anything for them. They're not buying an electric car anytime in the near future. You know what they want? They want gas prices to come down because America's producing more oil. That's what they'd like. That's what they'd like. They'd like you to put criminals in jail and keep them there. They'd like you to secure our border just a little bit. Don't pretend that you're doing anything about it because they know the truth. Guys, it's a scam. This very weekend, this very Friday, and I live in Miami. I don't read about this stuff in a magazine, okay? I see it with my own eyes. I hear it with my own ears. I had this couple telling me the flat-out story, okay? Their kids were already here because their kids were born here years ago when they were here visiting. Their kids were born here, U.S. citizens. Their kids are already here. This couple paid $5,000 each. They were driven to the border in a van. They were turned over to an agency right on the border who turned them over to the officers. They spent a day and a half in detention. Their papers were filled out. They were turned back over to the agency. The agency asked them, where would you like to go? I would like to go to Miami. They gave them a ticket to go to Miami. They even gave them a little card to buy things before they got there. And now they're living in South Florida. And what do you think? You don't think they're going to call back home and tell people, hey, we made it, and here's how we made it? And those are the people that can afford to buy the $5,000 each or save it. A lot of people can't. So they have to turn themselves over into the hands of these criminal delinquents, traffickers, evil persons that take advantage of these migrants, and they're coming because we are inviting them to come. This administration is inviting them to come. They're inviting them to come. When you tell people, don't come, but if you do, you're going to get to stay, they're going to come. And that's what's happening. We're not focused on that. They get it. People back home get it. And you're not going to convince them that any of this stuff here is any good for them. And it's happening, frankly, guys, because the modern Democratic Party, listen, I live in South Florida. It's a majority Democratic county. I've had Democrat friends. I've worked with liberals my whole life. I've done a bunch of bipartisan stuff here. Not bad people. But the modern Democratic Party does not care about working Americans. The only thing they care about is the agenda of a bunch of laptop liberals and Marxist misfits who threaten to burn down any city anytime they don't get their way on some issue, and a bunch of climate extremists. And that's what this bill reflects, at least two of those three. And that's what this bill does. That's the only people they cater to. That's what their issues are always about. And what they do is they put on the disguise of calling it the Inflation Reduction Act, but they can't even say it with a straight face. They really can't, because they know it's not true. This bill has nothing to do with what real people in the real world are worried about every single day. And the ironies are so thick. You know, I think about this carried interest loophole, as they call it. We've got prominent members of the Democratic Party in the Senate who have made a career out of calling that basically an unfair and immoral benefit for hedge fund managers and greedy billionaires. They've made a career out of it. Yet today they will vote on a bill that's stripped out, taking rid of that loophole. They'll vote for it. They'll vote for it. That's the irony embedded in all of this. So they'll do their press conference and speeches. They'll be very impressed with themselves. The Twitter warriors are going to love it. The MSNBCs and the Meet the Presses are all going to say, whoever, CNN, whatever, they're all going to be giddy about it. But millions and millions of working Americans, nothing is going to change for them for the better. There isn't a single thing in this bill that helps working people lower the price of groceries, or the price of gasoline, or the price of housing, or the price of clothes. There isn't a single thing in this bill that's going to keep criminals in jail. There isn't a single thing in this bill that's going to secure our border. And those happen to be the things that working people in this country care about. And the gap between the people who run this place and the people who are the backbone of this country is so massive, the disconnect so great, that the divisions it's driving in our politics are reaching a boiling point, unfortunately. What makes this nation different from all the countries in the world is our working class. Every nation has rich people. Every country in the world has wealthy people. What's made us different is that here, by the millions, people like my parents, a bartender and a maid, were able to own a home and raise a family and leave them better off than themselves. And they were never rich and they were never famous, and they lived the American dream because they retired with dignity. And with their own eyes, they saw their children have the opportunity to do the things they themselves never could do. That's what makes us different. Those are the people that are hurting. Those are the people that got wiped out in 2007 and 2008 when Wall Street created a crisis and Wall Street got bailed out. Those are the people whose kids couldn't go to school because in some parts of this country we shut school down for a year and a half. While the people shutting down the schools, their kids were going to private schools and had private tutors. And those are the people that are getting destroyed right now by this economy. And they're being ignored and disrespected and completely obliterated by a bill that does absolutely nothing for them. And that's what your U.S. Senate will spend late into the night and early into the morning voting on. The disconnect is massive. And I can point to a lot of examples, but this has become Exhibit A in that disconnect. I yield the floor.